Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds, Edge to Edge Transformation. It's always a joy for me to talk to friends and people that I've known in the industry and how much they are contributing to this transformation that we are seeing all around us. And one of the people I've known for a while but never really worked with is Shivani Govil. I admire her for all the things she's done and the adventure she's gone through. Shivani, tell us a little bit about you and what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Shankar, and great to be here with everyone. In terms of my background, I've been in enterprise software for over 25 plus years. Just from a quick journey perspective, I started my career in consulting and was doing business and strategy with different types of companies across different industries. And then I decided that I have to be at a startup and do something entrepreneurial to build businesses myself. So I joined a startup and we had a good exit. From there, I went to a second startup with the same team. And then, another good exit. And then after doing two startups, I decided I needed to take a little bit of pause and have some balance in my life. And so I went to a mid-sized company that was in the product lifecycle management space called Agile Software. I worked there for a few years. From there, I went to SAP, which is in the B2B application side, the entire supply chain, ERP, finance, accounting, HR. We were building applications around those. And I was at SAP for over 10 years. After which I moved to a company called Sage Software, which was doing something similar, but for medium-sized businesses. And then I've been the chief product officer at a company called CCC Intelligence Solutions. And I've actually just left CCC. I'm going to be taking on a new thing in a month that I will be sharing shortly. But one of the things that I focused on over the last 6 to 8 years is all around how can you use data, analytics, and AI to build better enterprise applications for businesses to use.
I read your article in Forbes. That was very exciting. Can you tell us a little more about what you're talking about? What's happening in generative AI and all that.
Yes. So as all of you are aware, probably feeling it every day, AI is all around us. Everybody is talking about AI, and especially more so with all the things we're seeing coming out with generative AI in the past few months with ChatGPT and other things. And so, one of the things that I'm a very strong believer in is the importance of technology in enabling us to do things differently and in new ways. But then also, how do you take those technologies and apply them to different types of use cases that can deliver value to end users? And so in this article that you mentioned, Shankar, what I'm talking about is, one, what are the opportunities that businesses have with all this new technology that's coming out and around us? And two, offering a guide and almost like a model for how people can build products and get them into more scalable enterprise, commercially viable solutions. What are the types of things businesses need to think about? What are some of the pitfalls that they need to watch for? And how do they take all this excitement that's happening around us in the technology space and use that to deliver products and applications that can help the end users that are using them?
This is all exciting. Given how many things that we have seen in, say, ChatGPT, the hallucinations, I mean, it's very productive. I use it every day, Google Bard too. But there are these challenges too, right? There's hallucination, there's bias. Do you think we are ready for enterprise applications? Anything serious? And
For
what will it
sure.
take?
I think we are, but I think it all comes down to the use cases. And, while we spend a lot of time talking about the technology and the algorithms and, some of the things, like you said, like around the things that have to be watched for, one of the very fundamental things that we always have to go back to is in the use of AI, you need data, and data becomes that that almost foundational layer that needs to exist. So in use cases, you need to have the right data that can be used to build the end applications. And so, yes, I think there's a host of use cases in enterprise space that can be built as long as people can access the right data and then be able to build it meaningfully. And let me give you an example with what I mean by that. So, for example, in my role as Chief Product Officer at CCC, one of the things I was looking at is how do we build applications that help somebody who gets into a car accident, an automotive accident, to be able to resolve their claim much more easily than in the past. So if any of you have ever been in an accident, you will know that firstly, it's a stressful situation. But secondly, it takes there's a lot of steps that need to happen to get it solved for. Now, in the past, it used to be that, maybe an adjuster or appraiser would come out to your house and look at the damage, take pictures. You might be directed to a repair facility to get your car fixed. What we did is we automated a lot of those functions using technology. So now if you get into an accident, you can take a picture of your car and the damage. We will apply computer vision, machine learning, other types of technology in the back to immediately detect based on, what is the year, make, model of your vehicle? What is the extent of damage? And then because we have a lot of data around claims history, we can also come to a very quick analysis of how much would it cost to fix your vehicle. So that's one way that we've applied these types of technologies to take what used to be a very labor-intensive process and really digitized it to help, one, the consumers like you and me who might get into an accident, but two, the insurance companies and their people to be able to do their jobs more efficiently so that they can resolve the claim much faster.
You are reminding me of what happened 3 months ago. My car was rear-ended by somebody, during the rains and all that stuff. And the process of resolving it is so stressful with all the things going on. I did not even make a claim for a month. Finally, I said, why don't we just do a claim and see what happens? And if
Yeah.
it's painful, we'll just ask them to just cancel it. It was Geico, the other side insurance, and they processed it so quickly and so fast. I was totally amazed. And the process was seamless, even the car rental process, everything. And so I guess you folks at CCC had a hand in it. So question, now that generative AI is here, can things be even better than what it has been so far? Let's say in the CCC use case in accidents. I'm just
Yeah.
asking you to speculate because you're not at CCC anymore.
Yes. And so what I will do is I will speculate, but outside of CCC,
Yeah.
I will say I do think generative AI opens up a whole new way of working and being able to do work. Let me just give you an example. There's a company out there called Tome. And if you want to create a presentation, many of us are using ChatGPT I recently went on a trip to Scotland and I said, okay, what should I do in 6 days while I'm there with some boundary conditions? And it came back with a pretty decent itinerary that was a first start and that I could build upon. Tome allows you to create presentations. So I can say, I want to do a presentation on the environmental impacts of automobiles, and it can create that presentation for you. A lot of coders have started using, a lot of developers and engineers have started using some of these technologies to get a head start on what the code could look like and should look like. Education is another industry where I'm seeing they're all experimenting. In the beginning, I would hear a lot of chatter around, students are going to cheat or somebody's going to do something that's not right in the education side. But I think a lot of these companies have embraced generative AI and looked at, can they provide maybe a teaching assistant or a co-pilot to the students to help them learn even better? So without a doubt, I feel there's a whole bunch of use cases and applications, some of which I am looking at in the enterprise space myself. what I would say is this is the first innings. And so today, in what we're seeing, most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, it's not finished product, right? So even when I talk about these presentations or I talk about, these trips to Scotland, you still have to get somebody, somebody looking at it to improve it and to make it that final product. But it actually takes away 30% of the work to get started, and it gives you a basis. Now, as these technologies keep improving, we're going to see more and more things that come almost ready-made for people to use. So yes, I feel there's huge opportunity, and there's things that we're going to find is going to reshape the way anybody does business or how they think about doing work. That's from a technology perspective, Shankar. But I think there's also a host of other things that go behind the scenes as well. For example, there's culture that exists in a company. And some cultures may resist certain things happening, or, there may be lobbies that are promoting something that prevent you from taking it on. There may be, commercial factors, right? It may, technically you can do it, but it may not have the cost of doing it through generative AI may be so exorbitant that it's not worth the value that you get out of it. So I think at the end, what we're going to see is, firstly, these technologies that are now being, a lot of experimentation, innovation is happening with them. But then we'll be marrying that with some of the other, people functions, business aspects, things like that, to figure out what are those scalable ones that we can indeed take forward that can be done at scale. What we haven't talked about is what are some of the watch outs? Yeah. So, for example, bias is one that we talk about all the time. How do you make sure that what you're building and, the algorithms you're creating, you're removing bias from it at the very outset? There could be bias in terms of gender. There could be bias in terms of, let's say you use someone's zip code in your solution. That may introduce a bias because zip codes might indicate either, certain economic perspectives, etc. So, just being very careful to remove things that might introduce bias and to continue to monitor your algorithm so that you know that there's no bias coming in or the models are not degrading over time. Ethical, how do you make sure that what you're building is ethical, using the right things? How do you manage the compliance so that you're not using PII, for example? And, PII, we all know, like name, phone number, date of birth, that's PII, but there could be other things that become PII without you realizing it, right? So making sure you're not using any of those kind of variables. And then I think a big part of it is also explainability. How do you make sure that AI doesn't become a black box where people don't know what's happening and are just expected to trust the outcome? And how do you actually explain what's happening so that people know that the path to get to the results is actually the right thing versus just something you're blindly following because, a machine is doing it without you having any way to check and gauge?
Wow. Looks like the way things are changing, it's so fast that we'll be playing catch up for some time, looks like.
Somebody once said that the pace of change today is much faster than what it was yesterday, but will be much slower than what it is tomorrow. And I think we're seeing this every day, right?
Every day.
The rate
Yes.
at which technology is changing. I tell people this is one of the most exciting times to be in technology.
Yes,
And,
it is.
for some of us who come from technology backgrounds, like people call me a kid in a candy shop when I see technology because I'm so excited at everything it offers and the promise of what you can do with it. But also for me, I'm not in love with technology just for the sake of technology. I love and care about the applications of that technology to do things in ways that improve people's lives.
Yeah. So speaking of people's lives and changes, many of the existing industries are likely to get cannibalized. For example, those who do legal research, those who are handling phone calls, or what do you call it, support services and
Customer
all that.
support. Mhm.
First of all, I mean, the industries that are getting cannibalized, they are going to resist. How do you see this whole transition happening and the impact it's going to have on people's jobs and livelihood?
Yeah, the way I think about it, Shankar, is these industries will be disrupted. I actually think every industry will be disrupted and every way of working will have a potential to do things differently. Um, I don't, I think that the AI is there or the technology is there to assist the people in doing their jobs better. So let's take a customer support representative, right? If you can provide them with the skills and the tips of how to provide better customer support, there's a groundswell of customer support inquiries that maybe a bot can answer, right? Like, how do I do a password reset or some common questions, etc. But there's always going to be a category of support questions that people will want to speak to another human. Now, this technology can help those other humans, the customer support representatives, provide a better experience to you and me. And so, what we're doing then with technology is assisting the people do their jobs better. That as a result, they can handle more calls, which means that the backlog that happens today, or when you get on a call and you're told, okay, you have to wait 15 minutes before somebody can get to you, will get eliminated, and you get your responses much faster. And by the way, there are some great companies like Unifor that are actually looking at how to make this whole customer experience much better using AI and generative AI type technologies. Another thing that, we talk about people's lives and how to improve it. Another thing that I would say is, a lot of these customer support centers have now gone overseas where people may be more comfortable or familiar with a different language. So, can you use some of these technologies to help do the translations? And this is not just in customer support, right? It's across the board so that people who may speak different languages can actually all come to the table and have a conversation in the same language and be able to understand and relate to each other. This goes back to the topic you and I were talking about, where, in some ways, AI can help democratize how things are done regardless of what language you speak, where you come from. It can give everyone a level playing field to be able to deliver.
That's a very promising future if it happens that way, and I'm totally for it. Having said that, you mentioned bias and the fact that not all constituencies are equally represented. Those who have access and those who have data available today will have much more access in future if the machine learning algorithm takes their view stronger. Do you think the world will become fairer, or do you think it'll become more biased towards people who have the wherewithal to push forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shankar. I wish I had a crystal ball to say one way or the other. I do think it gives the promise for the world to become fairer. I also think that what you see happening, but like, for example, if I compare with certain Asian countries like India, there is so much innovation happening in those countries itself that regional languages, I can bet you that there are companies in India looking at local dialects, local languages, and thinking about how to create this bridge and transparency to take it forward so that somebody in a remote village can also use the technology and be able to leverage the benefit of it. So I think from that perspective, it has the promise to create an level playing field. I think where the challenge is going to be is, are you a consumer or a producer of the technology? And how much do you understand it? And how much do you feel comfortable with it? And, we were talking earlier, there are some areas of these technologies that can be of risk when applied incorrectly. So being able to be informed enough or aware enough to be able to prevent the bad uses of it or the harmful uses of it is to me a big worry that I have. And I was giving you this example earlier where, now most banks are now introducing voice authentication so that they can authenticate you with your voice. And I worry about that because with AI, you can replicate somebody's voice and tonality and everything in minutes. So now if your bank is authenticating you using voice and some bad actor creates a replica, that's a dangerous situation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I feel like what I do worry about is the technology falling into the wrong hands or being misused for bad intentions.
Shivani, besides being an executive and founder of startups, you've also you've been an investor, you've been an advisor to companies. What are the areas where you've been able to help the most, and where do you see the promise as an investor or an advisor? Have you also been able to help people who need the money but don't have access to it?
Yes. So where my focus comes in as a product leader, what I what I really enjoy is that intersection of, what's the technology and what you can do with it. What is the user problem that you're trying to solve or the customer problem or opportunity that you're trying to create? And then what's the commercial and business side of it? So how can you actually make money and create a profitable growth business? So that's what I look at when I think of any business. And that's what I do when I advise companies is help them think through the three circles. And then for me, great products have great experiences. So layering that with the great design that makes a product something that's intuitive and desirable to use, that's the sphere that I like to play in. And that's what I like to bring when I advise these companies. And what I'm excited about is all the different innovations that are happening, the ideas that keep flowing forth. Living in Silicon Valley, you probably experience this as well. There's never, I mean, there are moments where the community is a little down, like, early on in the year with all the tech layoffs happening, there was a little moment, couple of weeks where people were, okay, what's going to happen to technology? Is there a bubble that's going to burst? But then soon after that, all the generative AI stuff started coming out, and all the entrepreneurs were again abuzz and excited about how they can use this technology to create new things. So that's what I get very excited when I look at, the community around us, and what I invest in is just that constant energy and excitement and the new ideas that come to the table to do things differently,
Please go ahead.
helping people who don't have money. So most of the time, like, I will invest as well. But I also advise, and, for example, I'm advising a couple of companies out of India, where I don't really, take anything. It's more my time that I would like to help them funnel to the right direction, make introductions, contacts, etc.
And I've seen that in addition to your investments and your innovation, you've also contributed generously to different causes. Do you feel that with all this technology, some of these causes will be better served? In what ways will technology help some of the causes that are dear to you?
Okay, so maybe two ways I'll answer that. One is just in terms of contributing to causes. I think you can create platforms that make it much easier to contribute. I think a bigger area, you and I have talked about how I have a very strong passion for climate and climate impact, and how do we reduce our climate impact. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to take technology, whether it's pure technology in terms of battery research, alternative energy, etc., to apply it to climate impact. As a software person, I think there's huge opportunity in creating software that allows people to manage their climate impact better. So first level, how do you even understand what is your climate impact? As a business, do I know what I'm impacting, how much, what is my environmental footprint? What are all the factors that are contributing to me as a business impacting the environment? And then second, and more importantly, how do I take steps to reduce that so that I can minimize my climate impact? And there's great companies that are working on this that I get very excited about. The other spaces, if you think about energy management, we all use so much energy, and the amount of energy businesses use is way more than what you and I might use as an individual. So we all need to do our individual part, but then think about these businesses now starting to understand their energy footprint and how can you optimize and consume less energy, whether it's the energy that's consumed in these data centers or other facets of business. You think about mobility and how do you create an environment where people can optimize their charging for their electric vehicles so that they are driving a cleaner vehicle, but also they are charging and replenishing their charge in a cleaner manner as well. So that's a very important area where I think technology can help. The other one is around education and education technology, and how does technology become an enabler to firstly proliferate education and disseminate knowledge so that it's not limited to few, but spread further and wider. But secondly, for companies to be able to retrain, reskill, resource, people from across the globe, I think technology is a huge enabler of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so much is happening right around us. I think we could speak all day long, and
Yeah.
we'll have to stop at some point. Do you have any words of advice for people joining, graduating with starry eyes? Some of them are worried because the whole technology landscape seems to be shifting. Where should they focus their energy, or how should they approach the problem?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would, if I think about what's near and dear to me, there's three things I would say. One is I would say always dream and continue to dream and dream big. You want to execute very tactically and practically, but you have to have big dreams and visions to try and change the world. The second is, have a continuous learning mindset. So today we're in this very exciting phase with technology. Tomorrow we're going to be in an even more exciting phase with some new technology or new ways of working. And so just having that continual learning, continual experimentation, innovation, learning from it, and then improving on it. I think that's a huge mindset. And that's actually one of the top things I look for when I hire people is that learning mindset. And then the third I would say is, invest in people and relationships, because that really stays with you no matter where you go and what you do. And as you think about these technologies and the excitement around the technologies themselves, I would also say think about the usability and how will people use that technology so that you can do things to help change the world and improve people's lives.
Well, thanks for that reminder. Very often we think that technology will replace everything, but hopefully technology will help us to be more human and lead a life that was meant to be, and take out some of the drudgery like washing machines have taken out from the chores, and that they're also intellectual or thought chores, which seem to be going away. So thanks again, Shivani. I'm looking forward to another such interview with you soon. There's so much to learn, and I wish I knew that earlier. I could have learned a lot more from you.
Well, thank you so much, Shankar, and thanks so much for having me. It was really fun to talk to you and exchange ideas and thoughts. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And to all the listeners, if there are some of you among you who want to share, who want to learn, let's talk. Let's maybe form something, maybe have a dialogue that will be about the future of technology and the way things are happening. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.